we have a very special video for today. We are teaching gambits in real life to big YouTuber, awesome guy, my man, Philip A. You should check him out on YouTube. Not just in real life, but this was right after my big chessboxing match, which I'll post the full breakdown of that very, very shortly. If that's already published, you'll see the link right above my head right now. This is going to be like a little bit different. For most of my content, I'd recommend being like at least about 500-600 chess.com to be able to fully understand like the things I'm breaking down. But Philip actually wasn't even 1,000,000% clear on the rules of chess. From there, though, we broke down a lot of the important strategic concepts, especially at the beginning of the game, how to attack, and we actually start analyzing the Alapin Gambit, one of the gambits on my channel, in a way such that he fully understood all of the important principles. You'll see exactly what I mean. Even if you're far past this level, I still think this is a very, very interesting video because you'll see me teaching, I guess, for the first time really at this level, and I have many, many years of experience teaching, and this is, I think, like a really great way to break down chess and to get people hooked on it, and also just like two entertaining guys in the middle of a boxing ring talking chess and all of that. Hope you all enjoy this breakdown.
But I haven't played chess in so long. I mean, I play like once a year. I play a game of chess, like with a friend maybe. So
okay.
I'm a pretty. But I understand. I understand I understand what's going on. But
Okay.
Show me kind of like you can show me like how you start a game. Like what's the.
Let me show you something. I'll take you through the opening in my first game against Deepak, but not what he played. What he didn't just fall for this.
He's on the right.
Yeah. Nice.
There we go.
I feel like I helped you too much. I'll mess them up now.
No, you're good. I always forget which side the bishop and the knight go on. Okay.
Well, you gotta have each color bishop, right?
Yeah.
You get one. A dark square bishop is always a dark square bishop, right?
Yeah.
And a light square bishop is always a light square bishop.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take you through like the beginning of my game against Deepak, but not what he did quite. Okay. So I actually let this pawn go. So you know a pawn's capture? Okay. So you took this one. Pawns are unique because they're the only ones that capture differently than how they move.
Yeah.
Right? Anything else, like for example, Deepak played here in the game, which I'll go over later, but this is also how the bishop moves. If the bishop just wanted to move there independently, not that this is a good move, but it could do that. Whereas you can't go here if there's nothing here.
Right.
Okay.
That's about all I retain from 4th grade. I know what pieces do, but I know nothing about the strategy, about where to go.
Okay.
So I normally get toasted pretty quickly. Before I know what's happened, I've been checkmated. So what
I would say to you is that don't lose sight of like the most obvious thing in chess, which is get their king and don't let them get your king, right? Like that's still the biggest thing. Like you could go into like a million levels of nuance, but ultimately that's what the game comes down to, right? As you know. And so king safety is still extremely, extremely important. Even if you're not getting checkmated, checks are really annoying.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that like, okay, if this pawn is under attack or whatever, but like your queen is hanging over here, I don't need to defend my pawn if there's some more important consideration. Right? You're attacking my pawn, okay, I can do something else, right? But if your king is under attack, you're legally required to get out of the way. And so that could be really annoying.
Yeah.
You can imagine like here. Oh, my bad. Yeah.
She's the videographer, so she.
What's your name?
Thais.
Thais. Well.
Nice to meet you.
She's my wife too. We're a duo.
Nice.
Duo. Okay, so
like here is like check, right?
Yeah.
That's really annoying.
Yeah.
Because I can't save my bishop in this position. I have to get out of check.
Right.
And then you can take my bishop.
Yeah.
Right. So openings onto the king, even if it's not checkmate per se, are very annoying because checks are something you always have to deal with. Right.
Yeah.
So king safety very important. Very important for that reason. Is that making sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So like that's why in general like the basic strategy of the game, right? It's similar to boxing. I'll keep this in boxing metaphors, right? The king is the head, right? It's a liability. If you could fight without it, that would be great. You can never lose. You can never get hurt, right? And so, there's a million levels of nuance you can get in boxing, but ultimately, like that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing is controlling the center of the ring or the board.
Is that important in chess, controlling the center?
Absolutely.
Okay, I never knew that. I had no idea.
Absolutely.
I had no idea.
I'm only controlling like in this little corner, and I let you do like whatever you want, right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Like if all my pieces are in this little corner, you can even abuse that rule of king safety. It's like if somebody's in no position to strike back, I don't even have to keep my hands up here.
Yeah.
Like I could do this and then conserve energy and fling from here if I feel like it, right? So it's that sort of thing. You know, you can absolutely abuse that. Like if they can't get to your king, you have no obligation to be defensive in any way, which is great. So controlling the center allows you to then control the whole board from there. So the thing is, our king actually starts out in the center, which sucks, right? The whole concept of like get your head off center line, right? Same thing here. Same thing here, right? So like let's say we do this, which is great. Pawns are in the middle of the board. You now can't access these squares, right? What would happen if you put that there?
He'd get taken.
Exactly. Right. All these squares, I could take any piece in any of them. All 4 of these. Does that make sense? Right. So like that's great, except I kind of exposed my king a little bit.
Right.
And that's why we have castling, right? You know how to castle? You know the rules?
I think, if I remember correctly, you can only do it if both of those pieces haven't moved, and then they just go king goes here, rook goes here.
Yep, that's exactly right. And so when you get checked, let's say, right? Jesus Christ. When you get checked right there, how do you want to get out of check in this situation?
I suppose you could...
I gave this to you backwards, but...
No, you're good. How do I want to get out of check? I guess I can move the knight, I can move my king, or the bishop. I guess if I move, I would probably move my... I don't know. I don't know what the best move. I see a couple options, but I don't know what the best move is.
Would you want to move your king, or would you want to block? And why? Think about castling.
I would want to move my king.
Which one still allows you to castle later?
Oh, block. I'd want to block. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Right?
Yeah.
I don't have a great boxing metaphor for that. Sometimes it's better to duck than block. But yes.
So
right?
hold on to the castle if you can. Is that? Yeah. Okay.
Specifically here, right? Like, yeah, we could go knight here, like you said. But I like pawn here the best.
I didn't even see.
What's special about that compared to knight there? What?
Well, this you're only losing a pawn. If he takes the pawn, you can take it.
Yes. Is this a good trade for black? Is black going to do that? Right.
I must say.
So is white threatening anything? Exactly, right? It creates a threat.
Yeah.
Right? So now you have to move your bishop. Whereas here, you could keep doing whatever you wanted. Make some useful move. Develop your pieces.
Trade, I guess, if you wanted to for some reason.
Right.
I don't know if that's a fair trade. Is the bishop better than the knight? Is that...
Roughly even for purposes. It depends. Depends. Yeah, roughly even. We'll talk about points and trading pieces and everything. But yes, basically here, black can continue to develop your pieces, right? All your pieces start out on the back rank. That sucks. We want to get them out and quick. And quick, right? So yes, black can continue to like bring out pieces here, do whatever they want. Whereas this move, right? Can black continue to bring out pieces and develop and ignore what I just did?
No, black cannot anymore, unless they want to lose their...
Exactly. You got to move that again, right? Yeah. So, let's say we deflect this. Okay, it moves away, right? Now we have what? For white.
Now you have, you're controlling the middle of the board. You can castle.
Castle quick.
Castle quick.
That's my advice.
Okay.
Castle quick. Middle of the board, especially because we want to move that, we want to control the middle of the board. The king is losing his main protection.
Yeah.
When we castle quick, right? To do that, they come here, right?
Yeah.
So the king's always moving 2 spaces, both long and short ways, right? Where it comes over. When we castle quickly, now what I want to do is like blow open the middle of the board. I want to trade lots of these pawns and get your king where it is before you have a chance to castle, maybe, right? I can come at you from all different ways. I'll bring my rook here now, because castling not only helps our king, right? The king and the rook. Like, you were talking about this, like the bishop and the knight starts out in fine spots, right? It's okay, they all come out, they're looking nice. King and the rook start out in the exact opposite spots that they need to. This is what we want. Okay, this is what we get, but right? Rook wants to be in the game. He's a great fighter. But the king, wants to be hidden away in the corner. Right? And once we castle, do you want to be moving these pawns?
No, I would assume not. They're kind of the protection.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
They're like the little wall.
I like that you gave me a reason there, not just based off of how I phrased the question. So you actually did know the answer.
Okay.
Exactly. Center pawns are the ones we want to move.
Okay.
The side where you castle to, you kind of want to keep those flat. You can go like here a little bit to create a square later. You know about back rank checkmates?
Sure.
Have you seen it? Or no? Okay. But
I was gonna say it feels like maybe he can get trapped back here. That's what I would worry about. Is that?
so it's possible. So back rank checkmates, just based off of how rooks and such operate. Something like this, right? So this is actually checkmate.
Yeah.
This, you know, a lot had to happen for this to happen.
Right.
Right? Like if we had any rooks starting on our first line, then this never would have happened. It could take it here.
Right.
But yes, this could be checkmate.
Yeah.
Right? Because the king actually, yes, is trapped by its own pawns, as you mentioned. So something you could do is just like a little bit. We're not compromising his safety too much, right? We call this.
Have an out.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Luft,
Gotcha.
as the Germans say.
Okay.
L-U-F-T with a thing on the U.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So like just there a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know castling short. Do you know castling long?
I don't know castling long. Can you castle to the other side? I did not know that.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
So like let's say within the rules, let's say you had moved this rook.
Yeah.
As you said, if you move that rook, you can't castle with it.
Yeah.
But even if you put it back.
Yeah.
Even if you put it back, right? We have one other way we can castle, which is this way. So long ways or queen side, which is what we call A to D.
Yeah.
King
I
side.
did not know you could castle on that side.
Yeah. So
that's good to know.
where would you guess it ends up?
I don't know. I would guess maybe king here, rook here on C, but I don't know.
Close. Yeah. King's always 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the rook would go right over.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So also totally valid. Slightly less common.
Yeah. That's good to know because I always felt like getting the king in the corner was like bad. I was like, I don't want to get trapped over here.
No, out of the way.
Yeah.
Total liability.
That's why I was not
total
very good at chess.
liability.
I was thinking about it backwards.
You thought this guy was a strength?
Yeah, I was like, keep him in the middle so he can get away from stuff.
Yeah. If you're posting this, there are going to be people in the comments being like, okay, in endgames when you trade a lot of things, right? So okay, let's say the queens are off, importantly, and like a lot of things are off the board, right?
Yeah.
This goes back to what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Now king safety is not so much of an issue. The game has changed a lot, right? It's hard to get the king without like these guys on the board.
Yeah.
Now the king can become an asset.
Yeah.
But until that point,
keep him protected.
Like now, okay, I can have him in the middle of the board, and like, what are you really going to do to me?
Right.
He can totally become an asset, and does, and that can decide endgames.
Yeah.
But for your purposes, king out of the way.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And that goes back to what I was saying. You know, if like your opponent doesn't have developed pieces and like they can't get to your king, then like But that's the same way. Like if the queen's not active or the queen's not on the board, it can be kind of like the same sort of role. Yes. So castling long ways can also be very important if for whatever reason like these pawns went away or you had to push them.
Yeah.
Right. So then we wouldn't want to. So we want to keep at least like one of these spots safe for our king in general.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So keep one of the rooks if you can, and not move, so that you have it as a backup. Kind of.
Exactly. Gotcha. And castling, and something you sometimes want to do if you go queen side, is like also spend another move going 1 over. It's going to be a separate move, but it can be a very useful thing to do because when you castle queen side, you'll note like before we had this equivalent on the other side of the board. Here you have this diagonal open to you, which can be annoying, right? Imagine like I'm still wearing these wraps, but imagine like check here. Why is that bad?
Well, it seems bad.
Because like, okay, it's check, I gotta move my king, and then what happens? Yeah, right?
Okay.
That's why checks are annoying. Opening onto our kings are annoying. Check here and I lose the bishop. Right? So something like that. Or like also like let's say this pawn wasn't defended or something, right? So like sliding over, getting more out of the way. Definitely valid. So and then as I said, you can't castle out of check. You understand what that means?
If you're in check, you can't castle?
Correct.
Didn't know.
That's a very important rule because, or else like you could really delay castling, I think. A lot of people like wonder why this is a rule in chess, but I think it's a rule that definitely benefits my style of play because I could just like stay in the middle whenever I want. Okay, then you finally got me, and then I'll run away out of check. But so it's a way that could definitely punish them for staying in the center too long. Right. So like that's my strat, even at a high level, at a low level. get your king safe, go get their king.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. That's a good
Don't
strategy.
forget the rules of the game.
Yeah,
It's still about
basics.
kings.
Get back to basics.
It's still
That's good advice.
That's how you win the game.
That's good advice.
At the
I
end
was
of the
always
day.
like, I don't want to get cornered in, but you're right. Like, I protect it, maybe give it a little out. I mean, you're the champion, so you would know. You would know.
King out of the way, queen at their king.
Gotcha.
They're very different pieces.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I can go back to showing you more stuff about my game or whatever.
Yeah. For
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about what almost happened in my game. So I'm the gambit man. I play gambits. Do you know what gambits are?
I do not, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard the term, but I don't know exactly what it means.
So we're sacrificing something.
Oh, okay.
So like they're gonna have like one more pawn than us on the board,
Gotcha.
right? So that is an advantage. Like okay, let's say they have 7 pawns and I have 6 pawns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's an advantage, especially if you trade everything else down.
Mm-hmm.
Like in soccer, you cover that. Having 11 on 10 gives you like some plus EV.
Yeah.
But then imagine that was 10 on 9,
Yeah.
9 on 8. Okay, then imagine that's 2 on 1. That's a
Right.
huge plus EV,
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so the more you trade down, is as the side having extra material, the better that is for you. The more that becomes pronounced.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, it's also better for black to trade down because what I am getting in exchange for this pawn, I'm not just giving it totally for nothing, is more active pieces, quicker development, and what I'm trying to do is attack your king. And so the more you trade, probably the more safe your king is. That's kind of a concept we just touched on a moment ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, whereas I'm just trying to get you quickly.
Right.
That's me.
Yeah.
So, okay, in the game, he played a very clever, creative move in h6, and it's too tricky probably to explain why that's good right now. But let's just say he played the most obvious and the most common move in this position of just taking this pawn.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
So here he took. He played d5, attacking this pawn. I did not defend the pawn, which is not one of the main or like approved moves, but it's just my brand of chess,
Yeah.
right? Okay, he took the pawn. I played here. Let's say he takes the pawn again, right? Because so here proposed another pawn trade. I'm trying to win this, something, right?
Yeah.
So he takes the pawn again. I recapture, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, so he took 2 pawns. I took 1. So he's up a pawn. Okay, now let's say, right, what you do in the beginning of the game, we develop our pieces and we castle our king. So let's say both sides do that, right? So he brings out this, I bring out this. What would black do? Maybe like their next couple moves to try to maybe castle next?
What would they do? Maybe move the bishop? I would maybe put him somewhere out here.
Yep.
Not here, maybe here.
Good, yeah, find a safe square. Yep.
There, yeah.
Yep, okay.
And then
I say find a safe square, like don't go there, right? That's not a safe square.
That would be that.
Very good, very good.
Maybe there or there. And then probably this.
Yep.
would be the move.
I've had this exact position a number of times.
Okay.
All right. Now, my evil plan is I don't have this pawn here. You might have seen like a lot of positions that kind of like look like this.
Right.
But this is I don't have that pawn there, and I'm going to use that to my benefit.
Yeah.
That pawn would be in the way of my next ideas.
Oh, okay.
Like you can't move through your own pieces.
Right.
So I have a very tricky plan to get my queen close to your king. This knight is very often here on a standard castle.
Yeah.
Where you castle your king, you put these pawns here, the knight comes here, this happens all the time. And it's a very, it's how the rules of chess are that like often this happens, and it's a great defender, right? My queen wants to come to these squares, like it's here, it wants to come to these squares, I can't.
Yeah.
Right, because the knight would take me.
Yeah.
Right? It also defends h7.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it shields this diagonal.
Yeah.
A number of other great things, right? We're just going to work totally around that knight. A knight on a dark square, because of how the knight moves, the octopus that the knight is, will only control light squares.
Okay.
Right? You know the knight.
Yeah, makes sense. I didn't think about it.
Yeah, especially if you're new to chess and you're trying to internalize such a tricky piece.
Right.
The rule is helpful for me. Thinking about coloration of squares. That, and then also with bishops, obviously, are all about coloration.
Yeah.
Pawns as well, right? The pawn will only control, a light square pawn will control light squares. Dark square bishop will control dark squares.
Okay.
Dark square knight will control light squares.
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha,
Okay.
gotcha.
I'm going to try to work around this knight.
Okay.
And I'm doing that via my very sneaky route. So let's say I play d1, right? Okay, this bishop can't really come out this way because it's blocked by its own pawn.
Yeah.
Pawn actually can't really come here either to come out of the way because I actually control that a couple times.
Yeah.
I would take this pawn, and this is very bad for black.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What I would say here is I have 2 attackers here, and you only have 1 defender.
Yeah.
So like this trade, like takes, I came out ahead. You didn't have a second defender to recapture there, and I win this trade.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the bishop needs another route out, and so what a lot of people do is they do something called a fianchetto. They're gonna come there, and now watch my route. So I came here with the queen, right? And now I came out this way. There was no pawn here. I gambited it. Okay, so you complete your fianchetto.
Okay, so I go there, yeah.
So the bishop, that wasn't a bad idea at all.
Yeah.
Bishop came out. It actually has a very nice diagonal. It's like in general towards my king.
Right.
You're bringing out your pieces. That's actually all very good stuff.
Right.
Okay. But let's look at why I did that, right?
Yeah.
So what is my queen looking at here?
It's looking at, I mean, well, from my point of view, it can't really do much from there. Because if it goes here, you know, you're gonna...
Good, right? This is protected.
Right,
True.
and then this is protected here because the king can take it.
Right.
Actually, it couldn't take it, I guess.
I'm glad that you're noticing that. So what's going on h7 exactly?
So we have a pawn, but if you...
Right, so if I just take here, right, what happens?
It would be check, and I would have to take it with my knight, right? I think.
Yeah, is that
and
a good...
then you would take that.
Right. This is already not looking like a great trade for white.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it's not.
I would just say this pawn is protected and I can't take that.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Because your knight is there. But this is why it's great to think creatively. If this knight weren't here, imagine that.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
I think that would be, if you moved here, would that be checkmate?
Queen kissing the king is when the king's on the back on the back row, first rank, 8th rank, HA.
Yeah.
Is if the queen is on a safe square, is almost always going to be checkmate, or at least very strong. So right next to it, if the queen is on a safe square, right? So like here, the queen is not on a safe square, you could be just taken by the king.
Yeah.
Or here is not on a safe square, it could just be taken, right? So that's what we're looking for. The queen and the bishop are actually coordinating on h7.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But so who is standing in my way of all my dreams?
This guy, I think.
I would do anything to get rid of that knight. Anything. So my next move, I again am going to use the fact that I don't have this f-pawn.
Yeah.
Right? What piece might be aiming at your knight in that case?
What piece might be aiming at my knight? Perhaps. Well, this rook. This guy wasn't here. Would have a line out.
Yes. Is this a good trade, rook for knight?
It doesn't seem like it.
But is it a good trade in this circumstance?
It is in this circumstance. Yes, it is actually. Yes. That's very interesting.
Right.
I don't think about it in circumstances like that. I just feel like, oh, rook's better. I don't want to lose my rook. I didn't think about it in like the scenario like that. I just think of it like piece for piece. But that's why.
Often that's true, but like, yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Here, this knight's not worth just a knight. This knight's worth the whole game.
Yeah.
This is checkmate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anything. I'll give all my pieces for that knight to be on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, here, what I'm gonna do, so what piece am I moving right now?
You would move this. Yeah.
So I'm gonna move it here. And I'll show you why in a moment I chose there. Because I could have chosen any square, which in theory kind of would have all had the same idea of just getting out of the way.
Yeah.
So now if I got to move again, which is always a great way to phrase what you're trying to do.
Right.
If I got to move again, what would I do?
I guess, would you take the knight with the rook? Is that the move? Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I have a big threat right now, which is taking, and then even though I'm losing material,
Now you're checkmate.
no, I checkmate.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So what are you
That's
gonna do?
crazy.
What are you gonna do about it? Well, I
would have lost. I would have done nothing about it. I would have thought that was a good trade for me, and I would have been
I'll
it.
give you a hint. In this position, it doesn't even matter if you see it. All of a sudden, my pieces are so good that you lose, and I'll show you why. I'll show you why none of your defenses work. The most intuitive defense might be to try to replace that knight with the other knight. Because here, right, we were talking about this. If you take back with anything else, queen, pawn, doesn't matter, then this is hanging. But if you're able to replace it with the same piece, then you're still holding h7, right? Does that make sense?
Right.
And you won this trade.
Makes sense, yeah.
This is why I came here, out of all squares. What am I going to do in this position if you try to replace it? I take this, right? You can't take back with the knight for obvious reasons, so you take back with the queen. Okay, it's just an even trade. What do I do now?
Now you take the knight.
Now I take the knight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Other resources you have are like maybe h6.
Yeah.
h6 looks like it solves all the problems.
Yeah.
That pawn is actually defended by its fellow pawn.
Right.
Those pawns are not just pawns. This is what we were saying about circumstances. They are the only thing standing between me and your king.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I going to do to that pawn?
You take it with this?
Yes. In general, two pawns are not worth as much as a bishop,
Right,
but
doesn't
these
seem
two
like it.
pawns,
Yes, those
these
two
two
pawns
pawns are
are,
worth
yes.
it. I take this.
Situational.
Yes. Takes. Also, this knight is hanging, so I even win that
Yeah,
trade.
yeah.
But I'm going to go here, and your king is toast.
Yeah.
This rook comes around in a couple moves,
That's crazy.
and you totally expose your king.
That's crazy.
The absolute last defense you had was so is this trying to block the queen.
Yeah.
This maybe trying to block
Right.
the bishop's path.
Right.
But this pawn was doing a very important job,
Right.
which it's now not doing, which is
Yeah.
what?
Well, it was blocking. Here. I suppose now.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. This seems good to me.
This
but
knight, we said it was defended, but
Right.
it just like couldn't be taken.
Yeah.
Now h7 is no longer a problem.
Yeah.
But the first thing is now a problem, which
Yeah.
was what?
Well, you could take this with this.
Yeah, I would say that maybe, but the pawn is defended by its fellow pawns.
Oh yeah.
Pawns,
Yeah. I don't know.
What was the pawn doing here?
The pawn was. Well, he was blocking the king.
He was a defender of.
He was a defender of the king. I don't know.
The knight.
Oh, the knight. Yeah, you're right.
He was able
The
to
knight.
take
The knight. I forgot about that. Yeah. I forgot about the knight.
Right?
Yeah. So you could just take the knight.
I could just take the knight for free. It's not even a sacrifice anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just my knight.
Yeah.
And I gave one pawn for all this attack.
Yeah.
Initially.
Yeah.
And you just made a few natural moves, and then the queen came in to kill her position.
Yeah.
And I just ran you over.
That's crazy.
So this works all the time online, and I
Yeah.
get this attack from a lot of different lines. So my lines in a few different gambits: the von Hennig gambit, the von Poppel gambit,
Wow.
the Alapin gambit. And so Deepak didn't run into this.
Yeah.
He knew of this.
Yeah.
And so this our game took a different path, which I'll cover later. But this is just like this is how we attack in chess. And in none of those lines was my king ever effective.
Right.
I
Right.
castled.
Right. And you got.
But I got my king safe, but I also got my rook into the game, which was the deciding factor there.
Dude.
And then all my pieces out.
That's why you're the champ, dude. That's why you're the champ.
Appreciate
dude. That's
it.
Smart, dude.
I hope that
That's
helped.
crazy.
Yeah.
I knew there was more. I was like, why are people so much better than me at chess? Like, I was like, it doesn't seem that hard, but it's.
People are so much better than me at chess, man.
No, dude. New York State champ. That's crazy. That's
Appreciate
crazy.
it.
Maybe my next game I'll come a little closer to winning, or not losing. I'll last a little longer next time I play.
All right.
Chess.com. All right, thank you for your time. I'll tag you.
Thank you.
And you're going to be here for the event tonight? Okay, cool.